Dear colleagues, good afternoon, good evening. We have two important questions today: the priorities of Russia's CSTO chairmanship in 2026 and the Russian Federation's strategy for combating neo-colonial practices. The foreign minister is invited to speak on both the first and second questions. What can we do? Vladimirovich, please allow me. Yes, please. Vitovina. Trump's two-point plan for the Ukrainian crisis is currently being actively discussed around the world. Before we begin discussing the main issues on the agenda, could you please express your opinion, your attitude toward this plan, and how it relates to your recent talks with Trump in Riyadh? Yes, of course, there is no secret here. We've barely discussed this publicly, only in the most general terms, but it's no secret. President Trump's peace plan for resolving the situation in Ukraine was discussed before the meeting in Alaska. And during that preliminary discussion, the American side asked us to make certain compromises and, as they said, show flexibility. The main point and goal of the Alaska meeting was that during the Anchorage talks we confirmed that, despite certain difficult issues and difficulties on our part, we nonetheless agree with these proposals and are prepared to demonstrate the flexibility requested. We have thoroughly briefed all our friends and partners in the Global South on all these issues, including the People's Republic of China, India, the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, South Africa, Brazil, and many other countries, as well as the CSTO countries. Of course, all our friends and partners, every single one of them, supported these potential agreements. However, we see that after the Alaska talks, there has been a certain pause on the American side, and we know that this is due to Ukraine's de facto rejection of the peace plan proposed by President Trump. I believe this is precisely why a new version of the plan, essentially a modernized two-point plan, has appeared. We have this text. We received it through existing communication channels with the U.S. administration. I believe it could also form the basis of a final peace settlement. But this text hasn't been discussed with us in any meaningful way. And I can guess why. The reason, I believe, is the same. The U.S. administration has so far been unable to secure the Ukrainian side's consent. Ukraine is against it. Apparently, Ukraine and its European allies are still under the illusion of inflicting a strategic defeat on Russia on the battlefield. I believe this position is not so much based on a lack of competence. I won't discuss that aspect now, but most likely this position is connected to a lack of objective information about the situation and the real state of affairs on the battlefield. Apparently, neither Ukraine nor Europe understands what this will ultimately lead to. Just one very recent example, Kupiansk. Just recently, Kiev publicly stated that there were no more than 60 Russian troops in the city, and that within the next few days the city would be completely unblocked by Ukrainian troops. But I want to inform you that even at that time, the city of Kupiansk was almost entirely in the hands of the Russian armed forces. Our troops were simply completing operations, clearing only individual blocks and streets. The city's fate had already been decided. What does this mean? Either the Kiev leadership lacks objective information about the situation on the front, or if they do have it, they are unable to objectively assess it. If Kiev is unwilling to discuss President Trump's proposal and refuses to do so, then they and the European warmongers must understand that the events in Kupiansk will inevitably be repeated in other key areas of the front. Perhaps not as quickly as we would like, but this will inevitably happen again. And overall, we are satisfied with this, as it leads to achieving the goals of the Joint Military Council by armed means during armed conflict. But as I have said many times before, we are also ready for peaceful negotiations and for resolving problems peacefully. However, this requires a substantive discussion of all the details of the proposed plan. We are ready for this. Let us now move on to the topics proposed for discussion during today's Security Council meeting. Please, Sergei Viktorovich.
So, in conclusion, what we are witnessing today is not merely another diplomatic exchange or routine geopolitical statement. This is a signal, a clear message from Moscow that the diplomatic window is still open, but rapidly narrowing. President Trump's proposed two-point peace plan for the Ukraine crisis has become the center of global discussion. Initially supported, or at least acknowledged, by multiple nations across the Global South, including China, India, Brazil, South Africa, and CSTO allies, the plan appeared to be a genuine opportunity for de-escalation. Russia confirmed its willingness to compromise, to show flexibility, and to move toward a negotiated settlement. However, the process stalled. Not because Moscow rejected the plan, but because, according to Russia, Ukraine refused to even consider it. And behind Ukraine's refusal, the statement suggests, stand key European governments still hoping or believing in the idea of a strategic military defeat for Russia. The example of Kupiansk was used not simply as military commentary, but as a warning, a prediction. Moscow's message is this: if Ukraine refuses peace discussions based on the new proposal, more cities could fall the way Kupiansk did, not overnight, but inevitably. Russia says it remains open to talks, but only if discussions are serious, substantive, and based on the text already circulated to Washington. Until then, the military operation continues, and Moscow believes momentum is on its side. So now the question becomes, will Ukraine and its European partners rethink their stance and return to the negotiating table? Or will this conflict move into a new, more decisive military phase, one that could reshape security in Europe for years to come? The next steps from Washington, Kiev, and Moscow will determine whether this crisis heads toward peace or toward escalation. We will continue to follow developments and provide updates as this story unfolds.